My name is Helen Carter. I am 68 years old, a widow who thought she had learned how to live with grief and how to keep her life steady. I raised my only son, Michael, on my own after losing my husband, and for years I believed the hardest battles were already behind me. That was before the night my phone lit up with a message from my lawyer that nearly tore my heart apart. It was a Thursday evening, the kind of calm night when you expect nothing but the comfort of routine. I had set the table for myself with leftover soup and was about to change into something warmer when the phone buzzed. Alan Green, the lawyer who had handled my family's affairs for decades, rarely sent messages. He preferred calls. His text was short, almost frantic. "Call me immediately. It's about Vanessa." I froze, the spoon slipping from my hand and hitting the tile with a dull clang. Vanessa, my son's new wife, was still fresh in our lives, but she had woven herself in quickly, perhaps too quickly. I stared at the glowing screen, my pulse thudding in my ears. Lawyers don't write messages like that unless something is terribly wrong. With trembling fingers, I called him. Alan's voice was low, clipped, like every word was weighed before being spoken. He told me things I didn't want to believe, things that made my chest tighten as if I were back in the moment of losing my husband. When I hung up, my reflection in the kitchen window looked like a stranger's, eyes wide, mouth dry, face pale. I remember whispering to myself, "This can't be true. Not her. Not after everything Michael has been through." I felt the air around me turn heavy, almost suffocating, as I thought about what my son might be facing if Alan's words were real. Instead of eating, I grabbed my coat. My keys rattled in my hand as I hurried to the car, the weight of dread pushing me forward. Michael had invited me for dinner that night. Now it was no longer a simple family visit. It was an urgent mission to look into the eyes of the woman who had become my daughter-in-law and see if I could recognize the truth hidden beneath her smile. The drive to Michael's house felt longer than usual. Though it was only 15 minutes away, every red light seemed to linger. Every brake tap another reminder of the unease crawling beneath my skin. By the time I pulled into their neat suburban driveway, my palms were damp against the steering wheel. The porch light glowed warmly, as if nothing could be wrong inside, yet my chest tightened with every step I took toward the door. Vanessa greeted me first, her smile as polished as the pearl earrings that dangled from her ears. She looked every bit the perfect hostess, dressed in a cream sweater and slacks that seemed chosen to radiate comfort. "Helen, we're so glad you could make it," she said, her voice carrying that sugary tone I had learned to distrust in others but had tried to overlook in her. Michael appeared behind her, taller than ever, his hair a little grayer since the wedding. He leaned down to kiss my cheek, his eyes lighting up in that familiar way that always softened me. For a brief moment, I wanted to believe Alan's warning was nothing but a mistake, some bizarre misunderstanding that would vanish with a laugh over dinner. Inside, though, the feeling shifted. The house looked immaculate, almost staged, with every picture frame and candle placed deliberately. Family photographs I expected to see were missing. There were no snapshots of Michael fishing with his father, no framed memories of his college days. Instead, the walls displayed staged portraits of Michael and Vanessa in coordinating outfits, as if their entire life together had been curated for display. I tried to ignore the knot in my stomach and set down the bottle of wine I had brought, but I couldn't shake the sense that the air belonged to her alone. Even the scent, lavender mixed with something sharper, clung in a way that felt rehearsed. Michael, unaware of my unease, asked about my drive and fussed over the roast Vanessa had been preparing. As I sat on the couch, Vanessa disappeared into the kitchen with a glide that felt too controlled, and I realized how little I truly knew her. Alan's words echoed in my ears. You need to see it for yourself. I folded my hands together tightly, forcing a smile when Michael sat beside me. The dinner was about to begin, and I knew that every word, every glance, would either confirm or shatter the fragile hope I was clinging to. Dinner began with the clatter of dishes and the careful choreography of a household that felt strangely foreign to me. Vanessa emerged from the kitchen carrying the roast, her smile fixed like a photograph. She placed it on the table with practiced elegance, then returned for bowls of potatoes and greens that looked as if they'd come straight from a magazine spread. Michael, could you pour the wine for your mother? She asked, her tone gentle yet directive. My son moved quickly, almost automatically, as though he had been trained into these small performances. I tried to remind myself that couples build routines, but something in his compliance unsettled me. As we began to eat, Vanessa leaned in with questions about my health, her eyes sparkling too brightly. You've been taking your supplements, haven't you, Helen? The way she lingered on my name felt rehearsed, like a nurse addressing a patient. I nodded politely, though my fork hovered above my plate longer than it should have. The conversation skipped lightly from neighborhood gossip to her supposed late nights at the hospital. She was, according to Michael, a pediatric nurse, though she spoke so vaguely about her work that it left only shadows. When I asked how her patients were doing, she tilted her head and gave a vague smile. Oh, confidentiality. It's best I don't share details. Her response slid into the air like oil on water, smooth, but refusing to mix. I glanced at Michael. He didn't notice the hollowness of her answer, or perhaps he didn't want to. His eyes shone with pride. The same pride I remembered when he brought home his first paycheck at 22. I wanted so badly to believe that pride was well placed. Then I caught sight of a folder peeking from the edge of the sideboard, a neat stack of insurance brochures, all with Vanessa's handwriting scribbled in the margins. She must have seen my eyes drift toward it, because she immediately rose and closed the drawer with a firm click, her smile never breaking. The knot in my stomach grew tighter. The roast tasted of rosemary and garlic, but it felt like ash in my mouth. My mind buzzed with Alan's warning, and I realized this was not just dinner, it was a stage, and every move had been carefully directed. I laid down my fork slowly, readying myself. If I didn't start asking the questions that had been clawing at my chest, the truth might slip through my fingers forever. The silence between bites began to weigh heavier than the food itself. I set down my knife and cleared my throat, feeling Michael's eyes lift toward me with the same boyish trust he had carried since childhood. My voice was calm, but I could feel the steel in it. Michael, I began, I wanted to ask about the money from the sale of the old house. The $50,000 I gave you, how did that help with settling into the new place? His fork paused mid-air, and I watched a flicker of unease cross his face. He glanced quickly at Vanessa, as though searching for permission before he answered. It covered the down payment. Mom. Most of it, anyway. Most of it? I pressed gently, though my stomach tightened. Before Michael could continue, Vanessa jumped in, her tone airy but sharp at the edges. Well, there were the wedding expenses, of course. $35,000, give or take. We wanted everything to be perfect. And it was worth it. Her eyes sparkled as if daring me to disagree. I studied her, then turned back to Michael. And the student loans you mentioned, the $15,000? Were those taken care of? For a moment, Michael's face went blank, his brow furrowing as if he had forgotten the script. Student loans? He repeated, confusion thick in his voice. The tension crackled in the air. Vanessa's hand tightened around her glass, her knuckles whitening. She forced a laugh that sounded brittle. Oh, darling, you must have misheard. We were talking about a credit card balance, not student loans. Her explanation was clumsy, and I could see the beads of sweat forming along her hairline. She pushed back her chair suddenly, the legs screeching against the hardwood floor. "Excuse me, I'll just check on dessert," she announced, her voice higher than before. Michael looked at me, bewildered. While I tried to steady my breathing, the questions had landed exactly where I'd aimed them, and the cracks were beginning to show. As Vanessa hurried from the table, her phone slipped from her pocket and landed on the sofa beside me with a soft thud. She didn't notice, too flustered to look back. My gaze dropped to the glowing screen. A new message had just appeared, a single preview line that made the hair on my arms stand on end. And in that moment, I knew dinner had only been the prelude to something far darker. The screen glowed in the dim light of the dining room, casting a pale reflection on my trembling hands. I hadn't meant to look, but the words were right there, bold and undeniable. "Marcus, did she sign the papers yet? Once the transfer clears, we move on." My breath caught in my throat. Transfer? Papers? The message pulsed like a siren, every word dripping with intent. I picked up the phone as if it were made of glass, afraid it might shatter in my grasp. Another notification blinked at the top. This time it was a photo, Michael's bank statement, his account balance circled in red. Below it, my name appeared as well, my own account number scribbled on a notepad. The realization hit me like ice water. This wasn't just about my son. Vanessa had been studying me, lining up her next move. I scrolled with shaking fingers, my stomach lurching as more fragments appeared. Scans of IDs under different names, insurance forms with forged signatures, conversations about targets and payouts, each piece fit together into a puzzle I had prayed didn't exist. The phone buzzed again, startling me so much that I nearly dropped it. My heart thundered as Vanessa's voice drifted in faintly from the kitchen, humming some tune too sweet for the venom hidden behind it. Michael leaned closer, confusion clouding his features. "Mom, what is it?" he whispered, his fork hovering forgotten above his plate. I met his eyes, but my voice cracked as I forced the words out. "It's not just the money. Michael, she's not who she says she is." I couldn't bear to show him the messages right then, not with her just steps away. Instead, I slipped the phone beneath the napkin on my lap and reached for my own cell. My fingers dialed Alan's number on instinct, each ring stretching longer than the last. When he answered, I kept my tone low, though my chest burned with fear. "Alan, it's worse than you thought. I have her phone. There are messages, bank details. She's planning something bigger. What do I do?" His reply was quick, urgent. "Don't confront her yet. Keep calm. I'll alert the authorities. Just stay put." I pressed the napkin tighter around the phone as Vanessa's footsteps returned. She entered the room with a smile and a tray of desserts, the picture of composure. But now, every glance, every gesture was a mask I could see straight through, and I knew this night was only the beginning of a far more dangerous game. The next morning, I sat in a cramped conference room at the precinct, the scent of stale coffee clinging to the air. Alan sat beside me, his jaw tight, while Detective Laura Martinez slid a thick folder across the table. Her expression was grim but steady, the look of someone who had walked people through nightmares before. Inside the folder were photographs, different women, all of them the same person wearing a different face. Hairstyles changed, names shifted, but the eyes remained the same. Vanessa Moore was only one mask. Her real name, according to the records, was Catherine Ward. Detective Martinez spoke with the calm precision of someone who couldn't afford mistakes. She has operated in 6 different states under at least a dozen aliases. We believe she's defrauded 17 victims, stealing more than $2 million combined. Men who thought they'd found love, parents who trusted her with their savings, retirees who never recovered. The words sank into me like stones. I thought of Michael's smile when he had first introduced her, the pride in his voice when he said he had finally found someone who understood him. My throat tightened with guilt. How could I not have seen it? Then Martinez's voice cut sharper. We also found documents indicating she was preparing to target you. Mrs. Carter, insurance policies, bank account numbers, power of attorney drafts with your name typed neatly on top. To her, you were the jackpot. The room tilted for a moment, and I gripped the edge of the table. My own face stared back at me from photocopied documents, my life reduced to signatures and numbers she intended to erase. Alan placed a hand over mine, grounding me. Helen, this is why I called you last night. She's dangerous, and she's already set her sights on your assets. But now that we have her phone, we can build a solid case. Martinez leaned forward. We want to catch her in the act. If you're willing, we'd like your help. A controlled meeting, where she reveals her intentions, will give us the leverage we need for an airtight arrest. My pulse hammered in my ears. The idea of playing along terrified me, yet I couldn't allow her to destroy more lives, especially not Michael's or mine. I took a deep breath, my voice firmer than I expected. Tell me what I need to do. The plan unfolded with a clarity that made my stomach twist. Detective Martinez laid it out step by step, her voice steady while mine trembled inside my chest. They wanted me to contact Vanessa, to extend an olive branch that wasn't real. I would suggest a private meeting, pretending I wanted to make things right after the uncomfortable dinner. It had to come from me, because if she sensed Michael's involvement, she might vanish before they could close the net around her. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with my phone resting on a legal pad, Alan beside me, the detectives listening quietly from the corner. My fingers hovered above the screen longer than I care to admit. Every message I typed and erased carried the weight of my son's future. Finally, with a deep breath, I wrote, Vanessa, I feel bad about last night. I want us to start fresh. Could we meet for coffee tomorrow, just the two of us? The reply came quicker than I expected. Of course, I'd love that. Just tell me where and when. Her eagerness wasn't warmth, it was hunger. When the officers left, the house felt heavier than it had in years. I stared at the photographs of Michael as a boy, his scraped knees, his proud grin on graduation day, and the ache of failure pressed against my ribs. How had I allowed someone like her to circle him like a hawk? How had I nearly opened myself up as her next feast? That night, sleep refused me. Every creak of the house made me startle. Every shadow on the wall seemed sharper. I thought about the warning signs I had ignored, the way she never let Michael speak for himself, the evasions about her nursing job, the constant push to merge finances, even the subtle comments about my own insurance. Each memory replayed as if under a harsh light, reminding me of how blind love and loneliness can make us. By dawn, I had steeled myself. I dressed carefully, choosing a blazer I hadn't worn in years, something that made me feel unyielding. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't just see a widow or a mother. I saw a woman determined to protect her family, even if it meant walking straight into the lion's den. The cafe was chosen. The time was set. Tomorrow. I would sit across from her, pretending to be vulnerable, while every second ticked us closer to the moment her mask would finally crack. The cafe smelled of burnt espresso and cinnamon, but to me, it might as well have been gunpowder. I sat at a corner table, the steam from my untouched coffee fogging the air in front of me. Every clink of a cup behind the counter made my shoulders tighten. Alan sat a few tables away, pretending to read the paper. Outside, an unmarked car idled, its windows reflecting the morning sun. When the bell above the door chimed, my breath stalled. Vanessa stepped inside wearing a soft blue coat and a scarf draped loosely around her neck, the picture of effortless charm. She spotted me quickly and waved, her smile so radiant it could have fooled anyone but me. "Thank you for meeting me, Helen," she said as she slid into the chair across from me. Her eyes studied mine with practiced sweetness. "I was worried after last night. You seemed unsettled." I folded my hands to keep them from shaking. It was a lot to take in, but I've been thinking, maybe I judged too quickly. Family should start with trust, right? Her smile widened. "Exactly. Trust is everything." The words slithered between us. She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim folder. "I've been meaning to show you this. Michael and I talked about updating some of the paperwork. Just small things, really. Beneficiary designations, joint accounts. It would mean so much if you'd consider." She pushed the folder across the table. My pulse hammered, but I forced myself to lean forward, as though curious. I opened it just enough to see the forged lines of my name waiting for my signature. "That's a lot to think about," I said softly, stalling. My voice wavered just enough to convince her. She leaned closer, her perfume sharp in my nose. "Don't think too long. Opportunities like this can disappear quickly." At that moment, Detective Martinez's voice crackled faintly through the tiny earpiece hidden in my collar. "Now!" The cafe door swung open and 2 officers strode in, their badges flashing. Vanessa's face froze, then twisted into a mask I had never seen before. Hard, cold, venomous. She shot up from her chair, but they were faster. In seconds, her hands were behind her back, silver cuffs snapping closed. The folder slid to the floor, papers scattering like fallen leaves. My coffee finally toppled, dark liquid spreading across the table. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours, my body trembling with relief. Michael appeared in the doorway, eyes wide, rushing toward me. As I fell into his embrace, the weight I had carried for weeks lifted, though I knew the scars would linger. 6 months later, the air around my home felt lighter, though the shadows of what had happened still lingered at the edges. The trial had moved forward quickly once the evidence was laid out. Vanessa, or rather Catherine Ward, faced a list of federal charges long enough to keep her behind bars for decades. Watching her in the courtroom, stripped of the masks she had worn so easily, I felt no triumph, only a deep, steady relief. Michael sat beside me through every hearing, his shoulders slumped at first, then slowly straightening as the weeks passed. Therapy helped him untangle the knots she had tied inside his mind. There were nights he confessed how foolish he felt, how blind. Each time, I reminded him that love has a way of softening our vision, and that vulnerability is never a crime. The real crime was hers, the deliberate cruelty of using trust as a weapon. Financially, we were fortunate. Investigators traced enough assets to recover nearly 60% of what she had stolen. It didn't erase the violation, but it gave us the chance to rebuild. More than the money, it was the sense of agency that mattered. We had confronted her lies, stood our ground, and survived. I found myself cherishing smaller things in the aftermath, the sound of Michael's laughter returning, the comfort of Sunday dinners where conversation flowed without hidden edges, even the silence of evenings spent alone that no longer felt heavy with suspicion. I had faced a predator and lived to see her caged. That truth alone was enough to make every morning sunrise feel like a victory. Looking back, I often think about the signs I brushed aside, the evasive answers, the way she tightened her grip on Michael's choices, the subtle hints about my own finances, red flags, every one of them. I see now how easy it is, especially at my age, to dismiss instincts as paranoia, but instincts are rarely wrong. If there is a lesson I would pass on, it is this. Never ignore the quiet voice inside you that whispers when something doesn't feel right. Trust may build families, but boundaries protect them. And sometimes, the bravest act of love is not believing blindly, but daring to question. As I sit on my porch now, watching the sun dip low and the world settle into calm, I know one thing with certainty. We were broken, yes, but we are healing. And healing, at last, feels like freedom. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.